Hey guys, welcome in. My name is Jerry's. This is my first ever game to show review slash reaction. I'm super excited about this because The Last of Us is one of my top 3 favorite games. I'm a little bit late to the game, but I started playing this game in 2021 and I played the remaster version. So like 8 years later. I'm going to be talking about what I really enjoyed about the show and how it also related to the game. I do invite people to comment down below of their own opinions. I really do enjoy discussing someone who enjoys this game or someone who's just getting into it and just really excited and want to be as knowledgeable. I don't know everything, so I do invite anyone who is more knowledgeable or just as excited to tell me things that I may have missed or maybe have actually gotten wrong. I just want to let you guys know that this discussion slash review will of course will have spoilers, so please be sure to watch the show and come in with your own thoughts before you watch this. All right, so first part, the very beginning of the show, it goes into a talk show, and at first I'm like, what? I'm trying to listen and trying to be like open-minded. I came into the show very open-minded. It is a bit of a nervous slash anxious feeling, really loving a game and then excited to watch the show or the movie and it just being straight trash. So I do really love the fact that in the talk show, they talk about the virus. They talk about literally a huge part of the game of how the enemies that you defeat are infected. Also, a side note, I never knew the pan and pandemic meant the whole world becomes sick. Mind blown. Mind blown. Especially because we just went through a pandemic. So, I mean, you learn something new every day, right, guys? So I feel like there's going to be 2 types of people that are going to be watching the show. It's going to be the people who played the game and then people who go into the show who didn't play the game. So I really do love the fact that they did show a bit of the background of the game and kind of not just throwing you into when Sarah is laying in the, laying on the couch and then just, Joel being all frantic about Tommy. I am really happy that they started off with that just so you know how serious this virus is. Or this virus can be. The actors, I'm a huge fan of Pedro Pascal. He was in Game of Thrones, which I mean I am a fan of, but I wasn't really a huge fan of his character in Game of Thrones. But I was a huge fan of him when he was Mando and the Mandalorian. So I'm trying to go into the show really open-minded, so it was a bit weird at first when he tried to do that Texan, accent, but yeah, I dropped all that once the show just took off. But Dr. Newman, he is from The Mummy. If you guys remember that movie, The Mummy, he is the brother, Jonathan. It's just crazy. The actor is John Hannah. I think that's his last name. It's just crazy how older he looks. It's so sad. The Mummy used to be like one of my favorite movie series. So it's crazy to see him. When they're talking about how fungi can pretty much turn ants, there's a huge YouTube video and articles about that, but it's very interesting how they also add that into the talk about the virus and how creepy crazy that could possibly happen. Okay, so it goes on and pans into Sarah sleeping in her bed and she wakes up, and I think it's just hilarious. Maybe not hilarious, but it has she has a Destiny's Child. She has a Destiny's Child poster just like above her bed, and it says Survivor on it. I mean, obviously it's in 2003, right? So that's kind of like how they are popular, but out of all the posters and songs that they chose that one. And I also want to note that the person who played Sarah, her name is Nico Parker, and holy cow, she is beautiful. and played Sarah so freaking well. There's a couple things that I'm trying to figure out. So how this starts is with Sarah. You kind of develop a relationship with her going into the show. The first thing that I do want to ask you guys, I mean, maybe this will come in a little later. I feel like usually when shows pan into like a very specified shot of something, it shows later in the show. But when Sarah reaches in to grab Joel's watch and the money, she looks at a knife and it's like engraved with like horses on it, and she lightly touches the blade. I don't know if that's like a metaphor for something, but it was very interesting how long that scene was. So I'm wondering if that plays an important role later in the show. I don't really remember it in the game. I could be totally wrong, but if you guys remember it, please feel free to comment down below. We'll discuss it. And so it kind of gives this little build up, right, to when the breakout actually happens. So she goes to school. You could hear like students coughing in the background, and I thought there was like something with like, so she's like writing some notes down, and then there's like a light, right, that shines. And I thought it was just like the bracelet, meaning like, okay, like remember to get the watch fixed. But I realized later that it's twitching. It's like twitching. So I'm wondering, so I'm like, okay, so I caught that as well. And then still goes on. She goes down, I think she goes downtown to, to a shop to get the watch repaired. You see sirens, you see the cop car, you see an ambulance, and then you see a SWAT mobile. That's pretty serious, right? And then all of a sudden it goes into this lady who owns the shop with her, I think her father, and goes, we gotta shut this down. We gotta shut the store down now. So that's kind of creepy. So I feel like Sarah is she's like slowly aware, but like I think like nothing's really clicking at this point. And then she goes on and sees her neighbors, and I just think it's funny that when they go, about to go bake, she's like, chocolate chip cookies, and then the lady's like, no, raisin. And I'm like, raisin? I'm hoping she's saying like oatmeal raisin. I've never eaten just raisin cookies. You go see Sarah leave the kitchen area to go into the living room, and she kind of like scans the movie section that they have, and you see the grandma in the background, and she's twitching. So again, to remind you guys, the Nana, she's twitching, and the lady explains that she's deaf. Mrs. Adler explains that, the Nana's deaf. I mean, she has no mortal functions. She's just in this wheelchair, just staring into the abyss. And so you see her twitching. It freaks me out. It's pretty creepy. And so Sarah, asks if she could borrow the movie, and she heads out because, she says, I'm sure she didn't want to be there, pretty much. And she kind of lies about it and says, oh, my dad will be home. I kind of just like, I'm going to head out. So she heads out, and she realizes that the dog Mercy is staring at Nana and is just wincing and just looks like the dog's not recognizing anything. And it's creepy because, like, you guys know, I mean, most people who own dogs or around dogs know that they can see things we do not see. They are very sensitive to a lot of things. So that freaks me out. She walks home. I think it's fighter jets that come by, like 3 or 4, which is, again, doesn't look like that's a normal thing. Like, I would start freaking out. And Joel comes home, and he makes a note about the door being locked. And at that moment, like when I first watched it, I was like, oh, it's like whatever. But it's because Sarah's scared. She's nervous. There's something going on. She doesn't know what's going on. She even asked Miss Adler, like, hey, is there something on the news that's, like, what's happening? I don't, there's just some weird stuff going on. And of course, Miss Adler has no idea what's going on. She's kind of like, in her own mind. And so I think she locked the door because she's kind of sensing something. She's starting to sense that there's something going on. And so Joel comes home late. You know, it's just so cute how, I mean, it's just so cool how, like, spot on the scene of this where she's giving him the watch, and, you know, he makes a comment about it's not working, and he's like joking about it. It's, I don't know, it's really great. It's the shirt, the concert shirt. I didn't even really recognize that until later.
Wow.
The box and the watch.
Did you?
What?
I don't hear anything.
I think it's stuck. It's not.
What? No. Oh, ha ha.
I come to find that the co-creator, writer slash director, Craig, is actually a huge fan of this game. He's a huge fan of this game, and he's actually a huge fan of Neil. And Neil is the creator of The Last of Us, the game. Him and Neil are, like, they came together to write the show. I literally was shocked. I mean, I obviously didn't realize that when I was watching the credits, but when I finally saw that, I was like, oh, that makes me so stoked to see the rest of the season. There is an Easter egg, which I will show. Okay, so here is the Easter egg that I wanted to show you guys too. So this Easter egg will not be known until you play The Last of Us Part 2, when Ellie is talking to Dina about having a movie night with Joel, and she asked what kind of movie, and this is the movie that he wanted to watch. So I thought that was really cute. So here it is. I was thinking of inviting Joel to watch a movie, and then Ellie says Curtis and the Viper too. So I thought that was really cute. Sarah ends up passing out, and while they watch the movie, and Joel gets a call from Tommy saying that, you know, he went to a bar, and a guy at the bar goes crazy and starts swinging at the waitress. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, that sounds kind of normal because it's like kind of late when he gets home. I mean, not that it's normal that people are swinging at a waitress, but it's not like, I mean, this could be like Waffle House, who knows? And and I'm thinking, okay, is this person infected? You know, because he's acting abnormal. It's not out of the ordinary, is what I'm trying to say. Tommy goes to jail, and Joel's gonna go ahead and grab him. So he puts Sarah to sleep, and this is when it goes back to like when you actually are playing the game again. She falls asleep at 2:16 a.m. and wakes up to like more sirens, like green flares. Do you like? I mean, I don't think she sees the green flares, but you guys, like, when you're watching it, you see the green flares. Do you guys know what that means? Does anyone know what that means? I was kind of doing a little bit of research and thinking like, okay, it could mean like, you know, like they're showing like, hey, like if you need like safety, come this way. So that's what I'm thinking. But you hear like helicopters, and I think this is when Sarah starts waking up in like even more of a panic because she's calling out for her dad, and her dad's not here. So she keeps calling out. She's hearing like, yeah, the screeching of tires, and then she turns on the TV, and it goes straight to like a national kind of alert. And then the first jump scare was when Mercy the dog, the neighbor's dog, jumps onto the window. And guys, when Sarah goes and tries to bring Mercy back to Miss Adler's house, I'm so scared for her. First of all, she's brave as hell. I wouldn't even like, if there was no lights in the house and the door was just wide open and the dog is loose, like, I'm not going in. And she even says like, Miss Adler, like, to like hear if, you know, someone would say anything. Nothing. I would have went straight home, called my freaking dad, and been like, something's going on with Mrs. Adler's house. And I feel like that kind of like goes into the game where I'm pretty sure it's when Joel says there's something going on with the neighbors. I think they're called like the Coopers or something like that. I'm guessing like they have to kind of build this up even more for obviously people who don't know like really what's going on, or like, you know, haven't played the game. So they go in and show Sarah. First thing I notice, Nana is not sitting in her wheelchair.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that is a no-go. That's a no-go. So she goes in there, slips on blood, keeps walking, and sees Mr. Adler, I want to say Mr. Adler, sitting, like blood everywhere, saying, "Help me." Your girl would have been running down the street by now. She keeps going, keeps getting closer, and finally sees Nana fully infected. I'm pretty sure she's fully infected. I'm guessing out of all the infected, this is probably a runner. I mean, she's super fast. She looks like she's possessed because she's like, you know, crawling all weird and everything. I mean, obviously the host of the fungi doesn't know how to really function a human body, because you see her kind of trembling and falling, like their functions are not really there. And she goes into the car, and then it goes into like how it is in the game as well. And you know, Sarah's asking a whole bunch of questions.
Saying it's a virus.
Yeah, this is the
kind of parasite.
It's a
them in the car.
Don't. No.
Are we sick?
No, of course not.
Why did things blow up?
No cell phone, no radio. A minute ago, newsman wouldn't shut up.
How do you know?
What?
It's crazy.
How do you know we're not sick?
And at this point, Joel, all he wants to do is just protect his baby girl. And they're, you know, driving around, trying to figure out how to get out of the area without, you know, running into traffic or running into like just a whole bunch of like just chaos that's happening. At first I was like I didn't understand why there are so many freaking people out at like 3 a.m. in the morning. But then I saw that there's like, it said on the theater like midnight showing, so I was like, okay, well that makes sense. But everything else, I'm like, what the hell? But of course that's probably like when everyone's going to the panic, because you know they're actually seeing this happen and they're like ready to leave. And then you see like planes super freaking close to the road, and I didn't even know why that was. I didn't really like think of that thing, but my friend was saying like, oh, like shit, there's no the planes can't land. So I was like, shit. So that's also very scary to see. And then when the plane crashes, I'm pretty much thinking like that someone's turned, you know, like someone's turned in the plane, and then that's why it crashed. So that plane crash gets them into a car accident, and that's when Sarah breaks her ankle and Joel has to carry her, and Tommy and them get separated. So Tommy is separated from Joel and Sarah. And so we meet another runner, I think, and I'm pretty sure they go through a diner, but in the game I'm pretty sure they run through a bar, and then they reach the river. One of the government people, a soldier, shoots the infected, and I know it's coming. We all know it's coming. Yeah, I still feel this like gut-wrenching like feeling. I'm like, no, please, like I don't want this to happen. We know what happens. It's yeah, I cried. It's within 20 minutes of the game that you see the death of Sarah, and it's so fucking spot on.
We're not sick. Sir, we are not sick! I'm sorry.
Other than the epic rolling on the hill, but it's crazy. All right. So after that really upsetting scene that I probably watched 3 times already, 4 times maybe, it's 20 years later. It shows where Joel is, and now he's in the quarantine zone. It does show a little bit of how Joel is now, kind of how he has coped with his daughter passing. There's like a scene where it shows a younger person who is infected, and they burn the bodies to burn the infection, and someone goes, hey, I can't do this. They literally physically throw people like into this pit of fire, and Joel picks up the body like it's nothing and tosses into the fire. And it kind of just shows how he is no longer phased. And then we also meet Tess. I actually really enjoy Tess's character so far. I really, really, really like Tess. I don't really remember, like, I feel like they had a thing, but in the show it actually shows that they definitely have like some sort of love interests. I mean, they looks like they live together, so that was really cool. It does go through the area kind of quickly, the quarantine. Like when you're playing the game, you go through a lot more. So you get to see a little bit of Joel and Tess's, kind of like how their dynamic works. I feel like it is interesting to see how difficult it could be to be living in that quarantine zone. I mean, when Joel goes into kind of in his floorboards to grab a map, it looks like maps are not even allowed. But then it goes into meeting Marlene and Ellie, and I come to find that in the show, when they originally were kind of setting this up for the show, they originally had the show stop where Joel throws the body into the fire pit, and HBO kind of looked at it and was like, I don't get it. This show's about Joel and Ellie, and we only get to see a smidge of Ellie. So I'm kind of glad that they extended it a little further. We get to meet Marlene, we get to meet Ellie, and within I was a little skeptical, I'm not gonna lie. I was very skeptical about all of the characters who were being cast, and that's including Pedro, which I'm a huge fan of. But with Ellie, I only saw that girl from Game of Thrones, and I was like, I'm not really quite sure. The moment she spoke, I was like, oh my god, this is Ellie. And her mannerisms were to a T, I would say. She definitely had that. She had that going. Also, I will say that it is interesting to see that shoelaces are for currency. I thought that was very interesting to see as well. It's just interesting to see. So once he gets into his apartment, you kind of see the really dark side of Joel, like where he is at the moment. And I feel like the game, for a while, he kind of hides it. It's not really about him. He kind of brushes it off when Ellie were to talk about Sarah or just anything in the past. It's just very nonchalant. Nothing out of him. So it shows a little bit more of his character in the show, which I really, really do like. As Ellie meets Marlene, I just want to note that Marlene is badass in the game, and she looks like a badass in this freaking show. So really loving the casting. I know I keep talking about it, but it exceeded my expectations. Again, I tried coming into watching this show with an open mind, so maybe I'm just not as harsh or critical, but I'm really happy. Really happy so far. So the timeline, I guess I'm gonna try talking it out. Hopefully you guys can help me figure it out in the comment section. But when Ellie is talking to Marlene about, she goes, is it gonna happen? Obviously they're talking about her being bit and if she's gonna turn. And I'm thinking I know later I do realize that Marlene and her mom were close, Ellie's mom. But I'm wondering, because Ellie goes, I'm not supposed to be here. I guess I'm confused in general. I don't really know, I guess, that whole background story. I will repeat that when I played the game, I played it on stream. So I didn't go through the notes that you get or any of maybe the other things I might have missed. So I'm guessing she got bit around the time she saw Marlene, and that's when I feel like maybe she kept her and then she didn't turn right away. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious. Maybe I'm missing something. And they talk about the Fireflies were terrorists, and Marlene saying, "Why would you say that we are terrorists?" Was Riley a terrorist? And Riley was Ellie's friend, and they met in the military camp in Fedra, which was in the game the game DLC for The Last of Us, and it was called Last of Us Left Behind. Okay, possible second jump scare in the show is when you first see the crazy detail of the fungi growing on, like, growing through a body and also on the building. It is crazy how on point it is from the game to the show. I'm mind blown. It's so good. Okay, and then another kind of like cross reference is that when Joel first sees Ellie, he's about to touch Marlene, and Ellie goes, "Don't fucking touch her," or "Don't touch her." But in this, like, the episode, the first episode, he goes towards Marlene and another girl, and Ellie jumps out trying to stab him with a knife, but he obviously pushes her against a wall, and she doesn't get Joel at all. So when Marlene asks Joel and Tess if they can smuggle Ellie to the capital, Joel, I think, is pretty desperate. He wants to see his brother. He wants to make sure his brother's fine, but and Marlene is willing to not only give him a working vehicle, they're also going to give him supplies, including weapons. So, he's kind of like, do I even really have a choice? I haven't made a comment on this yet, but even the costume designs for the show is very on point to the game. It's just really cool to see that there's little pieces of everyone's costume, like, from the game. Sarah's t-shirt, like her concert t-shirt with her long sleeve, she wore in the game. Ellie's Converse are in the game, and then I'm pretty sure Joel mainly wore a flannel, like a dark green flannel, but the main thing that he's wearing from the game is the watch, and the watch resembles Sarah, so I'll take it. It's still a button up, but it's not a flannel. It does portray her, how she kind of sneaks around and, like, looks through things that are, like, not hers, so it's cool to see how well they are doing with the game versus, the show. She is a little nosy like that. Or when Joel and Ellie are together in the room and, just to help the time pass by. She does mention in the game that Joel's watch is broken, and she does mention in the game that Joel mumbles in his sleep.
What are you doing?
Killing time.
But what am I supposed to do?
I'm sure you'll figure that out.
What am I supposed to do?
I am sure you will figure that out.
Crazy.
Your watch is
Your watch is broken.
I've noticed in the game that when the soldiers would test, green would be positive and red would be negative. It's kind of confusing. I saw, like, a picture, so I'm not quite sure if I got that correct, but if you guys know, definitely comment down below. And I thought at the very end, you hear a song play on the radio in Joel's apartment, and it's actually an 80s song. So, Trouble's Nearby. And that's the end of the first episode. Honestly, guys, my mouth was open the whole time. I was shocked on how great it is. It ends when they're going downtown. So if you guys are curious to follow along with the game, or curious where it ends in the game. So this is when they're going to obviously meet some more enemies that are not soldiers from Fedra. So it's going to be super intense, and I'm super excited to see the first clicker, to be honest. I mean, if they showed so much detail with the whole wall and Nana, I'm excited. So yeah, I would love if you guys have way more knowledge about the game and would love to answer my questions. Please comment down below. Again, this is my first time I've ever done like a reaction slash review for a game that went into a show or a movie. So I'm really excited. I love this game and I really love the show so far. So the fact that Neil is also working alongside of this, it makes me feel a lot better for the show and the fans. And I've seen some pretty good comments so far, so I hope, you know, I didn't want to look into the bad reviews because I went into the show with an open mind, and I don't want, you know, I don't want to be let down, if that makes any sense. I really enjoyed the character. I really enjoyed the actors. I enjoyed how well it was to the freaking game. The dialogue was to a T, and it's insane how to a T it could be, or how it was. I hope I hope you guys enjoyed this review slash reaction, and I have my first playthrough ever of The Last of Us. It's my very first game that I ever posted on YouTube. It is in my playlist, so if you guys would like to check that out. The quality is not so great, but it's a start. So we'll see. Maybe I'll start playing this game again. I'm playing Left Behind right now, so I'm super stoked. I'm pretty much done. It's a small DLC, so it's only like a couple hours. I hope to see you guys in the next video, and take care.